You are trying to get into your own dresser. Maybe it is the top drawer where the socks live. Maybe it is the kitchen drawer with the good spatula. Maybe it is a drawer in a piece your grandmother left you that used to slide like silk and now does not. You pull the handle, and it moves about half an inch and stops dead, like something reached out and grabbed it from the inside. You pull harder. It jerks another half inch, crooked now, one corner further out than the other, and you can feel the wood grinding against wood somewhere down in the dark where you cannot see. So you do what everybody does. You yank it hard, both hands, and it either comes free all at once and dumps half its contents on the floor, or it does not come free at all, and you stand there sweating over a piece of furniture that used to just work. Here is where most folks go one of two ways. Either they live with it, developing a little ritual, lift the front edge while you pull, jiggle it left, that kind of thing, until pulling open your own drawer feels like defusing something. Or they go online and buy a can of silicone spray lubricant for $8 or $9. Spray the runners, and it works great for about 3 weeks before the drawer is right back to sticking because the silicone wore off or the wood swelled again with the weather, and now you are spraying it every month like a chore that never ends. You do not need the spray can, and you do not need to live with the jiggle ritual either. There is something sitting in almost every kitchen junk drawer or bathroom cabinet in this country that will fix a sticking wood drawer permanently, or close enough to permanently that you will not think about it again for years. I am Artie Sterling. Let me be straight with you right at the front, so you know whose workbench you are leaning on. I spent 10 years as a finished carpenter before I ever taught a class, and 30 years teaching high school shop after that. And in all those years, I watched an awful lot of perfectly good furniture get blamed for a problem that was never the furniture's fault to begin with. Before I show you the fix, I want to tell you what is actually happening inside that drawer opening, because if you understand it, you will never be fooled by a spray can again. Wood is not a dead, finished material the way plastic or metal is. It is still, even after it has been cut and planed and built into a drawer, a material that breathes. It takes on moisture from the air in the summer and swells, just slightly, a few thousandths of an inch across the grain, and it gives that moisture back in the dry winter months and shrinks again. A well-built drawer is sized to allow for that seasonal movement, a small gap on either side of the drawer box where it rides against the case. But over the years, especially in an old piece where the original fit was already snug, that seasonal swelling starts pushing the wood surfaces together, tighter than they were built to sit. And now you have raw wood dragging against raw wood, sometimes bare, sometimes with 60 years of built-up dust and old wax and hand grease turned into something almost like a paste. That friction is the whole problem. Nothing is broken. Nothing is warped beyond saving. Two wood surfaces that used to have a hair of breathing room are now touching, and every time you force it, you are grinding a little more material off both of them, which paradoxically can make the sticking worse over time, not better, because you are roughing up the very surfaces that need to be smooth. The fix is not to lubricate the drawer with something wet, which is what a spray can does and why it fails so fast. Wet lubricants evaporate, or they attract dust and turn into grit, or the wood soaks them in and they are gone in a month. What you actually want is a dry, waxy coating that fills the wood grain seals it slightly against moisture, and creates a hard, slick surface that wood glides against instead of grips. And the plainest version of that sitting in most houses is a candle. Not a fancy scented candle, though it will work in a pinch, but plain paraffin wax, which is what candles and canning wax and even most old bars of soap are largely made from. Paraffin has been the actual trade answer to sticking wood drawers for longer than spray cans have existed. It was what carpenters used before anybody put lubricant in an aerosol can. And it still works better because it does not evaporate and it does not attract dust the way an oily spray does. Here is how you do it. Takes about 5 minutes for a whole dresser. 5 minutes you will spend once and then forget about for a couple of years. You need 3 things. 1, the sticking drawer itself, pulled all the way out of the case if you can manage it, which usually means lifting the front slightly while pulling to clear whatever is catching. If it will not come all the way out, that is fine. You can work it in place. It just takes a little longer. 2, a plain candle. A stub of an old one from the back of a drawer is perfect. You do not need a full fresh candle or a bar of plain soap, if that is what you have on hand. Ivory soap works especially well because it is hard and does not crumble. 3, nothing else. That is genuinely the whole kit. Look at the drawer box itself first. You are looking for the wood surfaces that actually touch the case when the drawer is closed, which is almost always the 2 bottom edges of the drawer sides, where the drawer box rides on a wood rail or directly on the case bottom, and sometimes the top edges too, if the drawer is a tight fit all the way around. You will usually be able to see a shiny or darkened streak right where the wood has been rubbing. That streak is telling you exactly where to work. Take your candle stub or your bar of soap and rub it directly along those contact edges. Firm pressure, the same motion as coloring with a fat crayon, until you can see a visible waxy or soapy film built up on the wood. Do not be shy with it. A thick coat works better than a thin one, and you cannot really overdo it here. Do both sides of the drawer, and if the drawer has a center runner underneath, a strip of wood the drawer bottom rides on, wax that too, running the candle along its full length. If you can reach the inside of the case where the drawer rubs against it, the 2 rails or strips of wood the drawer slides against, wax those as well, though the drawer itself usually matters more, since that is the surface actually carrying the weight. Slide the drawer back in and work it in and out a few times, slowly at first. You will feel the difference almost immediately, the grinding drag replaced by something closer to a glide, and by the 4th or 5th push and pull, it should be moving noticeably freer than when you started. If simple fixes like this save you from fighting the same old problems, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. If one spot is still catching, pull the drawer back out. Find that exact spot. Usually you can see a thin, unwaxed patch where the streak did not quite reach, and hit it again with a candle. 2 passes handles nearly every stubborn drawer I have ever come across in 30 years of watching teenagers wrestle with them in my classroom. Once you have done one drawer, you start seeing the same problem everywhere in a house, because it is never really about the drawer. It is about wood sliding against wood anywhere 2 surfaces are meant to move against each other. A wood-framed window that has always been stubborn to open in the tracks gets the same treatment, wax rubbed along the wood channel it slides in. A sliding closet door on wood rails, the same. Even a wooden desk drawer divider that has started to bind against its own little runner responds to the same 5 minutes of work. I have waxed everything from a church pew hinge point to a piano bench lid in my time. Because once you understand that the fix is filling raw wood grain with something slick and dry, you stop seeing individual broken things and start seeing one repeated problem with one repeated answer, one more detail worth knowing, because it saves you from redoing the work more than you need to. A properly waxed drawer does not need touching up every season. The wax sinks slightly into the open grain of the wood and stays put. So a good application on an ordinary household drawer will usually hold up for 2, 3, sometimes 5 years of daily use before it starts to feel sluggish again. And even then, it is rarely back to the original grinding stick. More just a gradual slowing down that tells you it is time for another quick pass. Compare that to a spray can lubricant, which most people find themselves reapplying every few weeks because it was never designed to sit in open wood grain the way a solid wax is. A few honest notes, because I am not going to promise you the moon on this one. This trick fixes friction. It does not fix a drawer box that has actually come apart at the corners, where the joints have loosened and the whole box is racking side to side instead of sliding straight. That is a glue and clamp repair, a different job entirely, and no amount of wax will hide a box that is not square anymore. It also will not fix a drawer that has taken on real water damage and swollen so badly that it physically will not fit in the opening at all, that sometimes needs a light hand plane pass on the high spots before wax will do anything useful. And if your drawer runs on modern metal ball-bearing slides rather than wood on wood, this trick is not for you either. Those need a completely different kind of lubricant, a dry silicone or graphite product made for metal, not wax, but for the ordinary wood drawer in an ordinary dresser or kitchen cabinet, sticking from age and humidity and years of built-up grime, which is the overwhelming majority of sticking drawers in real houses. This is the fix, and it will outlast any spray can by years. I will also tell you plainly that colored candles and scented candles work fine in a pinch. The wax itself does the job, regardless of what dye or fragrance oil got mixed into it. But a strongly colored candle can occasionally leave a faint tint on very pale, unfinished wood. So, if you are working on something light-colored and bare, reach for a plain white or natural beeswax candle if you have one, and save the deep red holiday candle for a drawer that already has a dark finish on it, where a stray mark will never show. Let me tell you a small story on this one, because it is the reason I keep a candle stub sitting right in my own workshop drawer to this day, not tucked away in a box somewhere, but out where I can grab it in 10 seconds. My grandmother had a sewing table, a little cherry piece with 3 narrow drawers, thread and pins and buttons in each one, and by the time I was in high school, those drawers had gotten so bad that she had basically stopped using the bottom 2, just left them shut and kept everything she actually needed in the top one, where she could still muscle it open. I was maybe 16, already spending afternoons in a real cabinet shop by then, and I asked her one Sunday why she did not just get the table looked at. She told me it was not worth the trouble for an old table like that. I went out to the garage, found a candle stub and a coffee can of odds and ends, and spent maybe 10 minutes on all 3 drawers while she made coffee. When she came back and tried the bottom drawer, it slid open with one finger, and she looked at it for a second like I had done something close to magic. That table is in my house now. All 3 drawers still glide the way they did that Sunday afternoon, and I have rewaxed them exactly twice in the decades since. 10 minutes with a candle stub gave her table back to her, and it is still one of my favorite things I own. Now, why does nobody tell you this? Same story as everything else at this bench. Walk into any hardware store, and you will find an aisle with drawer glide kits, replacement plastic runners, spray lubricants in bright cans, whole systems that promise to fix a sticking drawer permanently for $15 to $25 a set. Some of those products genuinely have their place, especially if you are actually replacing worn-out hardware. But there is no display anywhere in that store for a candle stub you already own, because nobody can build a business selling you something that cost nothing and that your own grandfather already had sitting in a kitchen drawer his whole life. The knowledge did not get hidden from you on purpose. It just stopped getting passed down, one generation at a time, because nobody profits from saying it out loud. So here is what I would ask of you. Go find the one drawer in your house that sticks the worst, the one you have half given up on, and quietly stopped opening the normal way, and give it 5 minutes with a candle stub or a bar of soap before you spend a dime on anything else. It does not need to be fancy. It does not need a workshop or a single power tool. It needs a stub of wax, a few minutes of your evening, and a little patience while you find the exact spot that is dragging. Then come down to the comments and tell me which drawer it was and how it went, whether it glided the first try or needed a second pass. Because I read every one of them, and I like knowing which pieces of furniture are getting their second life this week. And the next time we sit down at this bench together, I want to show you something that surprised even me the first time I saw it done properly, which is how a piece of tarnished old brass hardware, the kind that has gone dark and dull, sitting in a drawer or on an old cabinet for years, can come back to a real shine using nothing but a squeeze of ketchup from the kitchen. Sounds strange, I know, and I will admit I doubted it myself the first time a fellow teacher showed me, but the chemistry behind it is almost identical to the trick I showed you a few videos back for cleaning rust off an old tool. And once you see why it works, you will never look at a bottle of ketchup sitting in your own refrigerator quite the same way again. Keep it simple, keep it cheap, and do it right the first time. The folks who built the furniture in this country knew that, and we are going to remember it together.